Hello. I figured I would hop in here for a little bit and talk about the first day of the Rogue Invitational. I'm not sure who's online this late at night. It's 8:30 here on the West Coast. It is even later if you're on the East Coast or if you're, in Scotland or anywhere else you may be watching the Rogue Invitational, but I thought why not go through what we have going on at the Rogue Invitational, how people are doing so far, maybe read some comments, things like that. So I think this is a really awesome competition. It's one of my favorites that I've had the opportunity to watch last year at the games, or this past year, this summer. 2024 CrossFit Games was a little bit of a weird one, and I feel like it wasn't what people expected. A lot of these athletes didn't get the chance to showcase themselves at the 2024 CrossFit Games. We have quite a few in the field who pulled out. So Rogue is almost like a second opportunity at the CrossFit Games for a lot of these athletes. And something else, Rogue is just a really impressive competition. It is very well programmed. And then you also add in that the broadcast is fantastic. Like the graphics are all great. It's very easy to watch. Sean Woodland is back on the mic. He is fantastic, and I always enjoy listening to him. So far, I'm really excited about this competition and what we've got to see so far. And I just wanted to talk to you guys about what we've seen and what else we think is going to happen this weekend. So let's take a look at the leaderboard. I will pull that up so we can talk a little bit about, who we think is going to do well here. And I think there definitely are some obvious choices. So if I pull up the leaderboard here, you can see that in first place overall on the women's side, we have Tia-Clair Toomey, and I don't know if anyone picked anyone other than Tia to win this. I just don't know how or why. Tia did not win last year's Rogue Invitational, and she was there. Those things are true. She was also 5 months postpartum, and she came in second. And Laura needed the final event to beat her. So she is a league of her own. She can be in her own tier and won first on everything. I don't know if I would have picked her to win first on all these events, but if you look at some of the times, it wasn't even that much of a competition, especially on event 3. She was just in the lead for a lot of it, and I think she throttled back a little bit on event 1. She didn't beat Gabby Magala on that by very much. It looks like 11 seconds. But I feel like Tia just knew that she didn't need to run any harder. So event 1 was a sandbag carry and a bunch of runs, 400-meter runs, 10 rounds of different sandbag weights and those 400-meter runs. And Tia was so far ahead that it looked like she just wasn't running as hard her last lap because she just didn't need to. There was no reason for her to sell out and win by 30 seconds because getting first in this scoring system is the same whether you win by 1 second or by 10 minutes. So she definitely pulled back a little bit. She just didn't need to do any more than that. Then she won event 2. She was really smooth on those snatches. Laura Horvath ended up being caught on one of those snatches and failed it, gave Tia even more room to pull ahead. And Gabby ended up finishing second in between them. And then she came in first in that last event, and she was at 6:14. Brooke Wells came in second at 7:13. So it hasn't even really been a competition. I picked Tia to win this in my preview. And after 3 of the 9 events, I'm going to stick with that. Tia, I think, will win the 2024 Rogue Invitational, which will mean Tia has won 4 of the 6 of these. Really incredible. And I believe she has a 44% win percentage for each event. So she wins almost half of the events that she's started at the Rogue Invitational, which is insane. And if you think about the fact that she was postpartum last year, she probably could have won a couple more events last year if she had, been not 5 months postpartum and been a year postpartum, which she now is about a year and a half. I just very impressed by Tia. She definitely looks like a league of her own. And now there's talks of can she just sweep the whole weekend? And I don't know if I would bet against her. Statistically, I'd have to say she won't win every single event. We don't even know event 6 or event 9. But is it possible for Tia to win every event? I mean, it's possible. I do think event 6 has a good chance of being something brute strength, a max lift of some sort, stones maybe. And I do think there's a chance that while Tia is like one of the fittest athletes, she's overall just fit and strong. She's not necessarily the best brute strength athlete in this field. So if event 6 does happen to be like a 1 rep max or some sort of brute strength event, I do think that is where she may not win one of the events. But everything else, I think Tia can definitely do it. Moving down the leaderboard, because we can talk about Tia forever. But Gabby Magala is in second. And I almost picked Gabby to finish second overall when I did my predictions. And literally when I was recording the video, I chickened out. I thought, a lot of these events are heavy. I think Laura's going to be able to catch Gabby on some of that. But Gabby has looked so good recently. She looks fantastic at the CrossFit Games. She's looked good just on social media recently, posting things. She did that Kill Taylor competition against Taylor Self and beat him. I've been very impressed by Gabby these last few months, and she is continuing to impress me here as the second place to Tia-Clair Toomey with a second, and a fourth. I mean, she's put so much distance between her and Laura Horvath, who is in third. So Laura has a fourth, a third, and a 14th. I didn't think she was going to do as poorly as she did on that final event. I know that handstand push-ups are something that Laura struggles with quite a bit, but I just thought that she might be able to hold it together because it was wall facing. There was no deficit. I mean, she finished, but 14th in a field of 20 is not a position you can afford to take if you're hoping to maintain your place as the winner of this competition. She's won the last 2 years, and 14th just makes it difficult to continue winning. Brooke Wells is in fourth. She's only 5 points out of a podium position right now. With a 6th place finish, she looked good on that run. Brooke Wells has a running background. She did some track and field in high school. So it's not really surprising to see her do well on a running event, and she's strong. So lifting those sandbags, not a problem. 14th in event 2 with all those muscle ups. Not crazy to see that from her either. But then a 2nd place in this final event. She's good on her hands. So that makes sense for the handstand push-ups. And again, strong helps you a lot in Rogue. And we're seeing that from Brooke Wells. And it's great to see Brooke Wells doing well. Brooke has had injuries and some struggles throughout the last couple of years, and she looks good this weekend, and she'll continue to be in that top heat. In 5th, we have Ariel Lowen, and mostly because these last 2 events, although if we look at her scores, it's fairly consistent, a 12, a 7, and a 7. This is kind of what Ariel Lowen tends to do. Occasionally, she'll hit something out of the park, but more often, she's a consistent athlete. These are like consistent mid-pack finishes, but if you don't have that many holes and you can just hold that middle of the pack, it can really help you on the leaderboard and potentially put you in a podium position. I don't think Ariel Lowen's going to podium here, but she seems to be having fun. She looks pretty good. This is an interesting competition because I think for some people, this is a really big competition. And then for people like Ariel Lowen, who focus more on the CrossFit Games, it's like, it's a competition that she's doing, I think, more for fun. And because Rogue helps these athletes get there, and it's a cool opportunity for them to go to Scotland and do this whole thing. I don't know if all of them are looking at this as like peaking for this competition. And there's a male athlete we'll talk about when we get there who's definitely not peaking for this. Manan Engani is doing well too. First event, not great for her, but that first event, kind of an outlier because it is a lot of cardio, and these other 2 events have a bigger strength component with the heavy snatch and the heavy back squat. So if you're doing well on these 2 back end events, I think that's more significant than doing well on the first event. On the opposite end of this, Haley Adams, I think she was in 4th place going into the final event this evening. And she had a fifth and a sixth, fifth in that first event. No surprise on a running event. She was in the first heat, and I do wonder if Haley could have maybe pushed a little bit harder if she was in the second heat with the elite women, with the women that all beat her. She had the top score out of the first heat, and then 4 women beat her in the second heat. So I do wonder if she was running against Tia, if she was running against Gabby, if maybe Haley could have pushed a tiny bit farther. And I believe Laura beat her as well. And I think Haley would have had a shot at beating Laura. Let's actually go back up and talk about Laura and Gabby Magala for a second. They used to be training partners and very close for many years. I've heard, and what I've seen on the broadcast is they're definitely not as chummy as they've been in the past. That would make sense based on the decision of Gabby to continue on with the CrossFit Games this past year and the decision of Laura to pull out. It doesn't seem like those two are as close as they've been in the past. I know that seems like it's an obvious thing, but we just really haven't seen them together since the CrossFit Games, since Laura pulled out after the first event. And here we're not really seeing them be the friends that they've been up until this CrossFit Games. It'll be interesting to see if they ever talk about it or asked about it. I don't know if either Gabby or Laura would talk about their relationship with one another post the 2024 CrossFit Games, but definitely something that I wonder about when I'm watching them interact, because they were training partners for a very long time. Going back down to where we're talking about Haley Adams, who I think could have possibly beat Laura in that first event, but they were in separate heats. Haley got a 6th place finish on that heavy snatch event. Haley is good at high percentages of her 1 rep max, usually. So I don't know if I should be as surprised as I am that she was able to move that heavy snatch bar, but I am a little bit impressed that she got a 6th place finish on that. That's a very respectable finish. And it gave me a lot of hope going into the final event that maybe the back squats wouldn't be too big of a problem for her. But I was wrong about that. The back squats were definitely a struggle for her. She was doing them in singles. We know that strength is not Haley's strength. She's working on it. She's doing as well as she can. And she seemed to be laughing a little bit despite having to re-rack that bar from time to time. Let me pull up this comment here. Constance Fitness says, I hope they fix it. I adore their friendship. She is talking about Laura and Gabby. Yeah, I mean, I want everyone to be as happy as they can too. They do have a really great friendship. I think they do really push each other in the gym. It'll be interesting to see who comes out on top in this competition. Could that have something to do with their different training environments now? Who knows? But Gabby and Laura had a really awesome friendship for many years. And yeah, I think it's different now. I don't know that. They've not spoken about it, but just anecdotally from watching, it does appear that the relationship's a little bit different, and I hope they fix it as well. In 8th place, we have a podium finisher from this year's CrossFit Games. That is Emily Rolfe. And if I'm being honest, I think she'll continue to maybe be in this area or maybe fall out of the top 10. She had a great finish on that first event. Running is something Emily Rolfe does very well at. Did not have a good finish on the snatch event, the snatch and the muscle ups. And then I was actually surprised to see her get an 11th on the back squat workout, because I was worried, because again, Emily Rolfe is another endurance athlete, not a strength athlete. It's not where she excels. But an 11th place finish on that event for her, in my opinion, having watched her, I think that's a good finish. It's not, if you want to go for the podium, it's not where you want to be, but it's a solid finish. And I think she should be proud of that. And if she can get like 11s, 12s, 8s, that kind of place, she might be top 10 at the end of the weekend. Carla left a comment. Amanda, missed you here. Gabby is looking amazing, and I think training by herself gave her new energy. Yeah, I agree. I think that whatever she's doing now, whatever Gabby's doing in her training is working. I think that she has a confidence that we haven't seen in Gabby before. And that could possibly be because Gabby was sort of in Laura's shadow. I mean, it's hard not to be, right? Laura won the CrossFit Games. Laura's podiumed at the CrossFit Games multiple times. So training next to Laura, you're kind of in Laura's shadow. And now Gabby's kind of off on her own, doing her own thing. And I think it might be working for her. I don't want to see anyone have negative relationships with other people, but this hiccup in her relationship with Laura possibly might actually end up benefiting Gabby long term, because it seems like Gabby is really focused on herself, on her own training, on what she needs to do to be the best athlete she can be. And maybe training with Laura, she wasn't doing as much focused program on her weaknesses. And now, since she's not training with anyone else, she can do that. She can zone in on what she needs to do to be the best athlete she can be. And I think it's showing. Yeah, I was gonna pick Gabby in second, Constance, and I am kicking myself because I had that written down, and when I went to record my video previewing the Rogue Invitational, I chickened out and was like, I don't know if I can do it. I think I need to put Laura in second based on the events, but I should have stuck with Gabby. I should have stuck with my gut. Don't second guess yourself. Another comment from Katya. So happy you're back with more CrossFit content. Yep, back. Took a little break in between the games and Rogue, but now we'll probably be back until the games in 2025, which there's a lot of questions there. Not questions for tonight because we don't have the answers on those, but there are a lot of questions on what the 2025 CrossFit Games season will look like. I hope for the most part it'll look somewhat similar. But yeah, not a conversation for tonight because I don't have the answers on that right now. But in ninth, we have Danny Spiegel, who had an 18th place finish on that first event. No one's surprised. Then a 12th place finish. She is decent at a lot of those movements. So I thought maybe she could do a little bit better than 12th, but it's okay. It's like a damage control event. And then a third in the final event tonight. And she was in the first heat and she won the first heat. But looking at a lot of the other scores, the only person that she maybe could have reeled in Brooke Wells, because I believe she was like 713. So she might have been able to get Wells, but she wasn't going to get Tia. So she wasn't going to do much better, maybe 5 more points, which would have just tied her with Emily, which, I mean, every point's significant, right? So maybe it would have been better for her, but she'll be in the top heat tomorrow, Danny being in 9th place right now. 10th, Maddie Sturt. And Maddie, she came back to the CrossFit Games after years of not making it, just falling slightly short in the Oceania region. And I'm happy to see her back. I think she's an athlete that really shows resilience and being able to push and stay with something despite falling short year after year after year after having success. She's still very young. She was at the games at like 19, I believe. So she, very young, could have given up, fought back. She's in the top 10 at the Rogue Invitational. I think that's something that she should be proud of. 19th on that snatch workout. And then an 8th on the back squat. She's a good squatter, but I'm guessing I didn't see a lot of her just because of the way the event was structured. They were focusing on other people. But Maddie, for the 19th on that snatch workout, I'm guessing the snatches or the muscle-ups were a bigger limitation there because strength, obviously finishing 8th in that heavy back squat, she can squat strong. But snatching and squatting are a little bit different because snatches are like a squat snatch. It's a complex movement. And just having brute strength to squat, it's different. In 11th, I'm actually a little bit surprised to see this. We have Sydney Wells. Sydney qualified out of the online qualifiers. She did not go to the games this year. She was hit by a penalty on those box step-ups, that penalty that got a lot of people. Carson, that's my dog who wants to say hi to all of you. Sydney Wells was one of those athletes hit by the penalty, hit Paige Powers, hit a number of athletes, did not qualify for semifinals. We didn't see her at semis, obviously didn't see her at the games. And she's had time to sort of focus on what she wants to do, on what competition she wanted to do after not qualifying for the CrossFit Games. So maybe I should have expected this from her, but I didn't. And she's impressing me, although she did have a 20th place finish on that muscle up event. And I will say that is definitely because of the muscle ups, not the squat snatches. Carson, shh, hey buddy, Hey, buddy, we're doing a YouTube video. You want to come say hi? Carson, shh. Hey. Okay, so Sydney Wells, I actually worked out with her a few times at a CrossFit gym. Go get it. At a CrossFit gym in Arkansas when she was first getting into doing more competitive CrossFit, when she was still, just finishing up college. She did struggle with her muscle ups there. We've seen her struggle with muscle ups in the past. It's hit her at semifinals before. So this 20th place finish in a high volume ring muscle up event should not surprise us with Sydney Wells. But then a 5th place finish, a good bounce back, strong squatter, strong athlete. Her sister finished, 2nd in that event, and she finished 5th. I mean, they're twins. They're biologically very similar. So they have some similar strengths. I think the biggest thing is Brooke has been doing this as a professional job a lot longer than Sydney has. Sydney chose to do college athletics versus going the CrossFit route that her sister Brooke went. In 12th, we have Paige Semenza, did fantastic at the CrossFit Games this year, really struggled on that handstand push-up event. The back squats were no problem for her. She, I heard, may have some sort of shoulder thing going on, maybe an injury or something, but it was very, very obvious it was the handstand push-ups that were the problem for Paige, and it was not the back squats, which I know we have that Sear dumbbell coming up tomorrow, so that could be an issue for Paige as well. But I think these athletes that are down here are here, I think, more for experience than they are trying to, dethrone Tia or Laura, if I'm just being honest. 13th, we have Amanda Barnhart, who we also didn't see at the CrossFit Games this year, has had a lot of changes in her life, adopted a child, just has different focuses compared to when she was just a full-time athlete. She also worked part of the time. She's a full-time athlete too. So she has experience juggling, but didn't make it to the CrossFit Games this year, had a different summer than many summers past. Still, this is a strong event. Amanda Barnhart is a strong athlete. This is a good event for her to middle, like you're seeing her do right now, 14, 13, 10. And like I said earlier, if you do well on these back end events today, I think that says more than doing well on the running event today, because Rogue is a strong event. So these final 2 events of the day, I think, have more of a reflection than the first one on the rest of the weekend. In 14th, Alex Kazan, a little bit surprised to see this from her. I thought she'd be a top 10 athlete at this competition, and we're just barely talking about her. We're not seeing a lot of her on the broadcast because she's sitting in 13th, 11th, and 13th. So we're not talking about her at the top. A little bit surprised. Maybe being in that first heat will give us an opportunity to see more of her, because she'll have better chances to be in a more advantageous position to be put in the broadcast, because she'll be in a less competitive heat. So we'll get to see a little bit more of her tomorrow. Danielle Brandon in 15th. She had a great event 1, 7th, 10th on event 2. Really isn't that bad either. And then she took 20th on the back squat event. Should we be surprised? I don't know. Last year there was a back squat at Rogue. She struggled with that. She struggled with back squats in the past, but she had injuries then. I don't know if she currently has an injury that's preventing her from doing back squats. I know in the past when she struggled with these, she did, but I haven't heard anything about that. So now she just hasn't been doing them. It's just a difficult movement for him. I don't know. Carla said, yeah, she looked crushed at the back squat event. Yeah, she dropped the barbell. She had to take the weights off and then re-rack it. I expected a little bit more, honestly, from her in that event. I like Haley Adams. I think she's a great athlete. I think she shows a lot about resilience, especially coming back after taking some time off. But you expect Haley Adams to be last place in this event. And she wasn't. And she did singles on a lot of the back squats, which is great. I mean, that just says a lot for Haley. Just chip away. I mean, you made up 5 points by just chipping away. You beat somebody. But yeah, this is not great for Danielle. And if that final event tomorrow, event 6, is a brute strength event, I just don't know how well Danielle will do there either. So we'll have to see how that ends up working out. In 16th, again, another actual surprise to me is Emma Tall in 16th. I thought she would do a little better than this. She was 8th in the first event, and I didn't feel like that was an Emma Tall event. I was surprised to see her in 16th in that event. So I don't know. It's just interesting to see her this low on the leaderboard. And like I've been saying, I think these last 2 events are more indicative of the rest of the weekend. So the 15th and 15th might be more of where we expect to see Emma Tall than the 8th place. Taylor Williamson, 19th in that first event. Not super surprised with that. But a 4th in the snatch event. She won her heat. She looked really good there. Then a 16th in the back squat, but finished. I don't really have a good feel of what we're going to see from her the rest of the weekend. But I do think for Taylor, this is definitely a competition that's more for fun. She's not pursuing CrossFit in the same way as pretty much all of these other athletes. She has a full-time job. She works out for fun. She retired sort of after she left Mayhem. So I think she's just, she's here and that's awesome. Taylor Howe had a great finish on that final event after some not so great finishes. Never has made it to the CrossFit Games, a semifinal athlete. So to be here playing with the big dogs, I think it's just like great experience for her. Dana Paran, also another athlete that I don't think expected to be here, and she is. So she was able to take an 8th and a 12th. Those are good finishes. And she's not that far points behind, like to catch up and to be in the mid-teens, right? She's at 110 and Danielle Brandon's at 125. It wouldn't take a lot for someone like Dana Paran to just, elevate herself into the low teens. Where Emma McQuaid has 65 points and will probably struggle to get out of that 20th place position, 16, 17, 17th. But it looks like she has a lot of fans at the competition. There's a lot of European fans who seem to be supporting her. So I'm sure she's happy to be there as well. Really struggled on some of these events. But, we're not all going to win. They're not all going to win. Let's move over to the men's side because I do think the men's side is not necessarily surprising, but a little more unexpected than the women's side where we have Tia in first, which is, I would say, a surprise to almost no one. If you are surprised by Tia being in first, please leave a comment because I would like to hear why. So in first on the men's side is someone I did have on my podium to do well here at Rogue, and that is Jeff Adler. I thought he would podium. I wasn't confident in a Jeff Adler win. And I feel like that is primarily because we just didn't see him at the CrossFit Games. He did one event. He did not do super well for Jeff Adler on that one event. So I just didn't know what Jeff was going to look like at this point in the season. I definitely thought he was a podium contender, but he's looking very good and has a 50-point cushion on second place, which is quite significant. Jeff may be putting himself in a position just to win the weekend, to sort of run away with this. We'll see, but that's starting out day one with a 50-point cushion. What else could you ask? He has a second, a fifth, and a first. I don't really have anything bad to say, really, because he just he did really well all around. Ricky barely edged him out on that first event. It was a sprint. If you look, it's tenths of a second. There's very little you could say negative there about how Jeff did. 5th place finish in event 2, but then a easy first in event 3. Jeff's looking great. If I was to re-pick who was going to win after day 1, I'd pick Jeff Adler. Looking fantastic. Looks confident. He came off of the first set of those wall complexes on event 3, and he looked around. He said in the interview afterwards that he didn't know if he had done something wrong because he was just so far ahead of the rest of the field. And that says something about how good Jeff Adler looks right now. In second, Ricky Garrard. Looks pretty good all around. I don't really think of Ricky Garard as a strong squatter. So him not doing well in the squat workout, I mean, it's a middle of the pack finish. It's not awful, but like having that be his bad spot, I mean, it's not a huge surprise to me. But overall, first and a sixth in the first two events, he's in a great position. He will have to do a lot of work though if he actually wants to take that position from Jeff, or Jeff's going to have an event that's just very poor for him. And I don't know what event that would be right now. Maybe event 6. I don't know what it is. So we'll see. In third is someone else I had on my podium to do really well, and that is Dallin Pepper. I have been impressed by Dallin Pepper all season, and even last season, the 2023 CrossFit Games season. I think Dallin Pepper is somebody who has the potential to win the CrossFit Games in the future. He's 22. I don't think many people realize that Dallin Pepper is that young. Hasn't even reached his strength potential. So I think we'll see big things from Dallin Pepper at this competition, but for a very long time. I don't think Dallin Pepper is the best version of Dallin Pepper yet. And he could very well podium at this competition. 10th place running event. Dallin's a big guy. That's fine. First place in event 3. He looked fantastic on that with the snatches and the muscle ups. And then an 8th on that's the first place on event 2, and then an 8th on event 3. So some good finishes for Dallin. I feel like the men's leaderboard compared to the women's, there's just a little bit, the points aren't quite as high at the top. There isn't quite the same domination because you don't have someone like Tia winning all the events and taking all the points. So the point spreads are a little bit closer. In fourth, we've got Jason Hopper, who is someone I also had in my top 10 picks. Third and a fourth, really solid finishes on the first 2 events. 12th on the last event. I would guess it was more of the handstand push-ups for him and the wall complex, but I would expect that to be the outlier for him and to have more finishes in the top 10 as the weekend progresses. 5th, Chandler Smith with very consistent finishes. We have an 8th, a 7th, and a 6th. And he was out of the first heat, so the less good heat. So going up into the better heat may give Chandler the ability to push a little bit more in some places. They just didn't need to push as hard in that first heat because he's not going against the best athletes. Let's scroll down a little bit. In 6th, we have Patrick Vellner. He is the current Rogue champion. He won last year. 9th, 7th, very similar to Chandler in the fact that he's just very consistently in the middle. I do think he'd have to have a couple really good events. Now, if there's a deadlift event, I mean, that's really good for Chandler. Could be good for Pat too. He's got those giant monkey arms. He's got very long arms. So he doesn't pull that deadlift quite as far because his arms are like basically by his shoelaces. Not quite, but by his knees, essentially. He's got very long arms. So Pat's a good deadlifter. So if it's a deadlift, but we did that last year, so that would that be redundant? I don't know. Or maybe it's like, you don't think we're going to do it, but we're going to do it again. I don't know. We'll see. That would be good for both Pat and Chandler. So that could shake up the leaderboard if we see a deadlift event, either 6th or 9. Guy Malheiros. So I've heard from Guy that he is training for a marathon. And I do know that the 2.5 miles they ran in event 1 does not compare to the 26 miles you have to run a marathon. But I thought he could have done a little bit better on that first event. I know Guy is not that type of athlete. He's not an endurance athlete. Those are not the events he usually does well in. But I thought maybe he could like not get 20th, which is last, because he's been doing all this running. But whatever. He won. He had 2nd and 3rd in the back 2 events. And like I've said multiple times, those back 2 events, I think, will have more correlation to the rest of the weekend. And he had a 20th, and he's in 7th at the end of the day after a 2nd and a 3rd. So Guy may continue to climb. I had him as someone to look out for, but I just didn't know if he would quite be top 10. And if he can continue to do what he's done these back-end events, maybe he will. Brent Fikowski, a 5th and a 3rd. I believe he was sitting in 4th going into the final event today. Little disappointed to see him take an 18th. But being a taller, longer athlete, neither of the movements in event 3 lended itself to an athlete like him. He's long, more of a range of motion on the wall walks and on the handstand push-ups. And then again, he's tall, so more range of motion on that back squat. Just not great movements for Brent. 18th is not ideal. Does that mean he's out of it? No, I don't think anyone's really out of it at this point. He's less than 100 points back from Jeff, but it really would take a collapse from Jeff. I think this is now Jeff's to lose. Although, back at the CrossFit Games, Brent Rakowski was very far ahead going into the final 2 scored event. And I was like, there's very little way that Brent loses. And then he came in 3rd. So I don't want to jinx anyone, but I do think Jeff's in a very good position. In 9th, we have Jorge Fernandez. He qualified out of that online qualifier and has some pretty consistent finishes, 12th, 13th, and then a 5th that really, I think, helped to elevate him into this 9th place top 10 position. And now he gets to be in the heat with the big boys tomorrow. So we'll see if that helps or hurts him, right? Because if the really competitive guys get super ahead of you, that can be a little bit demoralizing, or you could try to rise to where they are. So we'll see how that impacts Jorge. Samuel Cornway, impressed with the 6th place finish on the first event. And he was in the first heat, I believe, too. So we didn't have the opportunity to really chase down the fastest guys. And then 12th and 13th, those events are very consistent. But those events are probably the ones that are more indicative of the weekend. So I think we're going to see Sam finish in about where he is now, a 10th, 11th, 9th, like that range, 9th, 8th through 12th. I think that's probably where we're going to see Sam end up at the end of the weekend. Now we have a couple surprising names down here. Jay Crouch, I don't know if I'm super surprised to see him here. Did really well in the squat event. Meh on the first 2, 11th to 17th. Jay pulled out of the CrossFit Games, I believe, because he had a little bit of a nagging injury going on, not because of some of the other reasons people pulled out of the CrossFit Games. Looking okay here. Nothing like that's blowing my mind. But it'll be interesting to see how he does the rest of the weekend. Now in 12th is a former CrossFit Games champ, Rogue Invitational champ. What is happening? Why is Justin Medeiros in 12th? I don't really have an explanation for it. And please, if you have an explanation, put it in the comments and I'm happy to read it. But I expected a little bit more from Justin. He finished in 2nd in event 3, which is a great finish, but did not do well on the run. I was surprised by how he did on the muscle up snatch workout, the 16th. I don't have an explanation for that. The 2nd was interesting because it was also interesting because he got no reps on his last back squat. So the set of 2, he did 3, and Justin was literally looking at his judge and he's like, why? And he ended up doing another one. I think he kind of wasted a little bit of time, and I'm sure he was frustrated in that moment. Probably frustrated with his position in the leaderboard and then frustrated by the judge being like, no rep. And I don't know why there was no rep. I guess he maybe didn't stand up all the way before he started walking the bar back. I'm not sure. Maybe he didn't go low enough. But he came very close to ending up in 3rd in that event. And he just beat it by a second. So you probably should have not taken the time to argue, but it all worked out. He's in 2nd, whatever. He didn't really argue. He just made a face. And I was like, what? But Katya says, definitely surprised to see Justin not do well today. James too, but I think he was sick with a pneumonia recently. Yes, James was sick. And James is in 13th, the next athlete we'll talk about. I just don't think this is the best event for James, Rogue as an event overall. So I'm not shocked to see James where he is. Maybe if he didn't have that pneumonia recently, he almost didn't compete from what I understand. He was thinking about not traveling for Rogue and not doing just staying home. He wanted to compete, but because he was so sick, he was going to see if he was able to even compete. So the fact that James is here is impressive in itself. I don't know if he's putting the same amount of pressure on himself to do well here because he's just recovering and not being able to work out for a while, and that the toll that takes on your system. So I'm not super surprised to see where James is. He did great on the first event. That's a good event for James. I mean, heavy back squats, a 19th for James in the final event today. I mean, I'm not shocked. He's been working on strength. He's getting stronger. He's putting in the work. He's also a super young guy. So he has a lot of room to grow over the next couple of years as he continues to get stronger and fill out and things like that as he gets older. So I think he'll get stronger. He probably won't ever be like the strongest athlete. I think him and Dallin are very similar ages, and Dallin is stronger than him just because Dallin's body lends itself more to that. But really strong finish from James in the first event, which is impressive after the pneumonia. And then a 10th and a 19th. 10th is good, 19th isn't great. I would expect that we see James more around that 10th place finish than the 19th. I do think that 19th will be an outlier, but we'll also have to see how his body holds up after being really sick. Hendrik Haapalainen, 7th, 14th, 14th. This is just where I feel like, and Samuel Quant is right below him, where some of these athletes are. They're very good athletes. They do decently well at the games. They're just not athletes that really threaten for the podium. They're just kind of like very fit, very competitive. You have to be a great athlete to make it to Rogue. This is a very competitive field, but some of them are like competitive, but they're just the bottom part of this top 20 competitive. And I think that's sort of where we'll see Hendrik and Samuel. Hendrik sometimes does really well, but I do think this region of the teens, maybe closer to like 10 through 15, that's probably where those guys are going to remain. Bjorkman Carl Gudmundsson. This is a little bit lower than I would expect him in his heyday, but BKG is older. His training age is pretty old. He's not terribly old in age. I think it's like 30. But he's been at the top of this for a long time. He's been to like 11 CrossFit games. So his training age in the CrossFit sphere is on the older side, which is how long he's been beating down his body with this sort of stuff. And I don't know if he's the BKG anymore that was a podium threat. I don't know. I don't think so. I think that time has come and gone for him. Like I was talking about, Dallin Pepper is getting better, and I think he has the potential to win the CrossFit Games one day. BKG's potential was in the past. It's gone now. He's just a mid-level athlete now. Jonakoski actually is sort of similar to BKG. Used to be like a top 10 contender, and I just think his training age is catching up with him, and he's more of like where we see him now. 16th, 19th, and a 10th. 18th. The fact that Noah Olson is an 18th is impressive. Like, round of applause for Noah in 18th, because he was, first of all, in 20th going into the final event. And if you don't know this, Noah Olson did an Ironman. He did an Ironman on Sunday, I believe. Maybe it was Saturday, but it might have been Sunday. So less than a week, and he has just... he's competing in a different country. I don't know. The fact that Noah Olson did an Ironman 5 days ago and is competing in one of the most competitive CrossFit competitions today. I mean, good job, Noah. That's a great finish for Noah under the circumstances. That takes a huge toll on your body. Like, your body takes time to recover from doing an Ironman. And when I say time, I do not mean 5 days in a cross-country flight. So, yeah, you would think maybe he would do better than 18th on that first event because it was a lot of running, but he's probably run out. Like, his legs are probably done. And I was surprised to see him finish 9th on the final event today. And I actually think Noah has the potential to climb a little bit because he just has the history and the consistency of just having years of doing this, and the confidence and the love. My dog's behind me trying to bury something in the couch. He has the love of the sport and the knowledge of the sport. Noah's been doing this a long time too. He has the knowledge of the sport to possibly game events better than some of the other athletes. So I do think that I wouldn't be surprised to see Noah finishing closer to that like 12th through 15th range, just because there's going to be some of the events that he's just a little bit smarter on than some of the athletes that have less experience than him, even though Noah's body has to be like talking to him. He has to be hurting. If he pulled out, I also wouldn't be shocked, but I don't think that's a Noah thing to do. I think Noah would happily take last if his body lets him do it and finish competing, because he's a spirit of the games, right? He's that kind of athlete. So I think he'll do well and try to do as well as he can, even if him doing well is finishing 20th. I think he'll still go for it, but I wouldn't be surprised for him to inch his way closer to that 15th with his experience, with his knowledge of his body and his knowledge of the workouts and just being able to overcome things. So impressed to see Noah not in 20th. In 19th, you got Saxon Panchek. A little bit surprised to see him this low, but as a smaller athlete, Rogue just is not the competition, I think, for an athlete built like Saxon. He can surprise you sometimes in some of the strength events, but this has always been and always will be a more strength-dominated competition. It's not entirely strength. We have those workouts, like that running workout. Haley Adams is actually doing very well despite a 19th place finish in the back squat event, but it is just more of a strength competition compared to some other comps. So Saxon, being a smaller athlete, just doesn't lead himself to doing well there. And Yorgos Karvis, 19th, 11th, and 20th. He came out hot on that first running event, and that he did that. That is what he did. And then it ended. The coming out hot ended, and he fell back to a 19th. And I'll probably go with him to be in last place for this event. Sorry. Someone's got to come in last. And like I've been saying, Rogue is a very competitive competition. The field is smaller and possibly more competitive than the CrossFit Games. So coming in last at Rogue, you're still an incredible athlete, but someone's got to come in last. Unless someone pulls out, but like someone's in last. Let's go over and just look at the schedule for tomorrow. So we are going down to, where are we? Unless my dog does not allow me to do that by barking very loud. Carson, hey. Okay, so here are our events for Saturday. Carson, hey, want to talk to the YouTube? Do you want to say hi to YouTube? Can you guys see him there? He's protecting me, I think. Carson, hey, want your toy? Carson, go get it. Okay. Crisis averted. Okay, so we have 3 events tomorrow. This is 3 events each day. This is a really full competition. Oh, Bobby said hi to you, Carson. I told him. So this is a very full competition. We have more events here than we do at semifinals. Semifinals tends to be 6, sometimes 7 events. Here we have 9, so we have 3, 3, 3. It's a very full competition. These athletes are going to be hurting by the end of this weekend. And looking at it, we have quite a bit of volume tomorrow. We've got a lot of rowing. Those thrusters on event 4, hunting haggis. Yum. Ew. I don't know what to think of that name. They have some fun names here. 1,000-meter row, 30 thrusters, 30 and 20 log bar muscle ups, 30 thrusters again, 1,000-meter row. That's a rough workout. And those log muscle ups, they're really hit or miss, right? Like some athletes can figure out the way to do them and do well and string them together. And we may see some of the women on those 20s go down to singles or even start with singles. So that log muscle up is really the separator there. That thruster is also a decent weight. All these athletes can string together quite a few, maybe even do 30 at 95 and 135, but you're not going to want to before you do those log muscle ups and coming off of the row. It's almost like there's a little bit of a Fran element in here, right? Because you got the 30 thrusters and you've got the muscle ups. You got like a bar thruster and then you've got something on the rig. That's going to be a nasty workout. Someone else said, Carson wants to be on the live show too. He does. Carson always wants to be on all the shows. Usually I edit him out when he does that, but I don't have that ability tonight. And then we have Devil's Tail. And that is rope climbs. This is that sear bell devil's press that I was talking about earlier that may impact some athletes. Like I heard Paige Semenza may have something going on with her shoulder, which is why she struggled on those handstand push-ups. So this dumbbell, which is 100 pounds and 70 pounds, and I believe it's thick. Like it's a lot harder to grip. And I think they may be able to clean and jerk it because with that thicker grip, it would be easier for it to slide out when they try to do the devil's press. Like if you've done a devil's press in your gym, you've probably snatched it. They may be clean and jerking these because they're heavier and thicker. And then you have to do rope climbs. So when I'm talking about how thick this is, your grip, because you're gripping the rope and then you're gripping this dumbbell. So that'll be an interesting thing. It's going to come down a lot to grip fatigue and to shoulder endurance. So any athlete that has like a shoulder thing going on or really struggled with those handstand push-ups, actually, you know who else really struggled with those? James Sprague. He struggled on those handstand push-ups. So this may be difficult for him too. And it might also just be part of the recovering from a pneumonia, like just the system being taxed. So that'll be interesting to see, especially seeing like this new element and how people adapt to that. That's always a fun thing. I guess I'll just pick Tia to win all of these. I mean, she's won like half the events she's ever competed in Rogue. I believe it's 44% is the exact number, but I believe that number is probably skewed from being 5 months postpartum last year. She probably could be closer to 50% if she wasn't 5 months postpartum last year. So Tia might sweep this. We'll see. I think someone will get her somewhere, but she can win both of those. Finally, we have that individual event 6, which according to the website still hasn't been announced. I don't know if anyone else has seen them announce it somewhere. Maybe they put it on Instagram or something, but I haven't seen it announced. I don't know if anyone has any guesses. If you do, put it in the comments and I'll read off your guesses for event 6. I'm pretty certain it's going to be something strength related. They do have like a time that they have in there for how long the event is, but I do think that they'll go past that time if it's like the deadlift ladder that we saw last year where athletes just putting on more weight and going farther and farther. Like I think they'll just extend the time. It's not like it's a television broadcast where they have to have a hard out, but I'm thinking it's got to be something strength. Maybe it's like a weird element, like something we don't see as often. We don't have any deadlifts in this competition. I don't think we have any cleans in this competition as of right now either. Let me scroll down. We have no cleans in this competition as of right now either. So maybe a heavy clean, maybe a deadlift. Carla says deadlift with some twist. I mean, you never know, like a deadlift, and then you have like something else you have to do as like a tie break or something if you get stuck at a bar. I don't know. A weird deadlift, some of those like, different bars that make it more difficult, or I don't know. I just feel like they did the deadlift last year. I feel like it would work well with what they have programmed so far, but I would be surprised to see Rogue do the exact same thing a second year, Maybe another duel, but with cleans. I would love a duel. I've heard some other people say the time frame, like what they have scheduled online for this event, doesn't make sense for a duel. Like whatever they have listed for the heats and stuff. But I would love to see a duel. The duels were fun. That was a really fun event. It is a little bit more of an event that relies on execution when you have these duels, and anyone can get knocked out unexpectedly. Like someone can just fail something, and someone that would usually do well in that just like has a misstep, kind of like Tia on the jump rope when we had those single unders in the CrossFit Games 2 years ago. She tripped on a single under and got eliminated in that sort of like a dual type workout. So those are fun for that reason, the execution error. I would love to see that. Maybe a duel with cleans. I don't know if any of you watched some of the strongman stuff, but they did have those like stones that they used and they put on those pedestals. I mean, you could do something like that with a duel, right? Where you have 2 of those set up or 4 of those set up, and you have athletes go out in heats and put them up there and, have times and compare the times and, do a whole bracket thing. So maybe something like that. I don't know. I'm excited because I feel like Rogue usually does some cool stuff. And because Rogue creates equipment and stuff, they usually have some cool toys to play with. So maybe it's a cool toy thing. We do have to remember we have event 9 that we still don't know. So event 9 could answer those questions of where are the cleans? Where are the deadlifts? I would say where are the burpees, but a devil's press is very similar to a burpee. So maybe we already have that element sort of there. So because we have 2 events left that we don't know, some of these movements that feel like they're missing may be coming. We may still have those. And I guess I don't think event 9 would be a duel or a strength event. It would just be a weird event to end things on. I don't think people would like that. I feel like Rogue does a pretty good job of putting on a really good show and really showcasing the athletes. So I don't think they would end the event on something like a duel where you can knock out some of the biggest names or even the person in first off an execution error. So I don't think we'll see that there. But event 6, a lot of things could be there. I'm excited to see what it is. I'm excited for the rest of this weekend. Rogue has not disappointed so far. Except, I might be a little bit disappointed that Tia's winning all of it so handedly because it doesn't really leave us with much competition there. Unless Tia falters on an event and Gabby can really push her. That would be cool. That would be cool. It was cool to have Tia and Laura go down to the last event last year. I don't think this is going to come down to the last event. It may actually be done right now. The winners on both sides might stay the same after today. Both people have a pretty strong lead. Anyway, I appreciate you all for watching and hanging out with me late on a Friday night. This was fun. I love doing these live streams, getting to interact with all of you real time. I might try to hop on and do one tomorrow. I don't know if my schedule is going to allow for that because I do work tomorrow. But this was super fun. Appreciate you all. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe, like this video, leave a comment. I'll get back to those. I appreciate you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. And watch Rogue. It's been really good, really exciting, and a great broadcast. All right. See you next one. Bye. Oh, Carson's here. He'll say bye too. Carson, say bye. Now you're quieter? Okay. Bye. All right. Bye. Have a good night, guys.